Zelensky, I don't think he'll ever be best friends with Trump. But yeah, the difference from that Oval Office meeting is huge. He's earned Trump's respect. I think they've developed some level of rapport. And also, Ukraine is making some gains on the battlefield. I think Trump really does like a winner.
And I suppose still with the principle that all roads lead to Donald Trump, you see it physically embodied today in the White House, where you have two major wars being discussed in the space of an afternoon here and a morning in Washington, D.C. In to see President Trump in the White House, we have had first Volodymyr Zelensky, and that was followed by Benjamin Netanyahu, who may well still be there now. But it's a perfect illustration of just the power that emanates from that office now. And interesting how the dynamic of those relationships have gone through this, not quite a revolution, but a shift. We've seen previously one of the president's best buddies, Benjamin Netanyahu, absolutely shoulder to shoulder in a number of meetings. Now, their meeting is very much behind closed doors, and they are at odds over the conduct of the war in Iran. And meanwhile, Volodymyr Zelensky, who was, treated far from appropriately in a visit in February of last year, he's said to be favoured by President Trump now, who is impressed by the progress of Ukraine in resisting the Russian invasion. All sorts of curious ironies there.
Yeah, what a difference a year makes. As you say, that those two relationships have almost reversed. It's partly a reflection of changing realities on the battlefields. It's also a reflection of how mercurial the US president can be. But yeah, Benjamin Netanyahu had this meeting today. He's in quite a difficult spot with Trump. He's really, really conscious. He wants to keep fighting with Iran. Trump's pretty wary. And Netanyahu's really alienated himself and Israel from a lot of key allies, both in the Democrats, in the MAGA base, even some sort of other people close to Trump. So he's in a really tight spot, and there is this growing sense that Trump is quite fed up with him. Netanyahu obviously has an election coming up in October, so he has some domestic political concerns as well, and there's a lot of frustration in Israel about this unfinished war and how we're going to resolve the situation with Iran. So he is in a very tight spot. Fortunately for Netanyahu, he is a master Machiavel and has wriggled out of tight spots before. But whereas Zelensky, I don't think he'll ever be best friends with Trump. But yeah, the difference from that Oval Office meeting is huge. He's earned Trump's respect. I think they've developed some level of rapport. And also, Ukraine is making some gains on the battlefield. I think Trump really does like a winner.
Yeah.
And that is so central to his way of seeing the world. And he's starting I think part of the reason he was being cruel to Zelensky last year was that he was like, you guys are you're losers. Putin's the strong man. He's the big guy. Just give up. Don't fight. Whereas now he's learned that actually maybe Putin's kind of messed him around a bit. Putin's weaker than he thought. The Ukrainians have shown remarkable resilience. But what will that translate to? Will they give them Patriot missiles? How much is Trump really going to move on backing Ukraine? Is he going to start weighing in behind a more favourable peace deal for Ukraine? Those questions remain unanswered.
It's interesting that Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have agreed to visit Kyiv, and that's for the first time. So that looks like they are going to try and revive some sort of talks, which I think is an interesting sort of outcome, really, from where we've seen things from, as you say, Josh, from the difficult relationship that Zelensky sort of had in that awful Oval Office meeting, to now seeing that, to the point where actually two of those key individuals that have been involved in lots of negotiations actually saying we're even going to go to Kyiv is I think pretty significant.
Yeah, although one thing that doesn't seem to have changed at all in the Ukraine formula is Vladimir Putin. When there were envoys in Moscow, he treated them frankly with disdain. They had to wait an hour before they even got in to see President Putin. And there's a good reason to argue or suggest that even with Donald Trump to go the full way on the pendulum and say, look, you need to stop this war, Putin, we say now, we're no longer friends if you continue this, that would weigh very much with Vladimir Putin. So to him, the conquest of Ukraine is part of a wider a mission to restore Russia's presence and power on the continent. That is a sacred mission to him.
It is, and I also think that he has this very powerful sense of his own strength and endurance and durability, and that Russia always endures, and that his calculation in this war was always like, well, they'll give up sooner. the Europeans will turn tail, the Americans will give up. We will be the steel that endures in this fight. So there's no reason to think that he would crumble anytime soon. I do think that Russia is struggling with drone strikes, its economy is struggling, but there's still potentially a lot of gas in the tank for Putin, quite literally in some cases. So there's no reason to think that Trump can swing it, not least because Putin still has Beijing pretty much in his corner, and for as long as that's true, he can probably keep going, and Trump doesn't have a huge amount of leverage over him.
And as far as Iran is concerned, they were seeing some of the America First, the strongest American First tendency within the MAGA movement. They're saying they're worried that President Trump might yield to pressure to reopen hostilities against Iran and return to full-scale war. There's lots of reasons to think that won't be the case. I mean, the president insists he doesn't care about markets. He's not too bothered about opinion polls, but he clearly is. And he's been wobbling and losing on both those fronts far too much and for far too long to throw them all up in the air and hazard a new assault, even a ground assault in Iran, let alone a more intensive bombing campaign. The midterms are creeping up very, very rapidly. The pressure of time is on him more than it's on Iran.
Yeah, totally. I think that the domestic political calculations become a factor for Trump, and also we just don't really know what his objective is with this war anymore. It swung about so many times. Is it the end of Iran's nuclear ambitions? Is it the end of the regime? I think he's probably given up on that now. Is it just to reopen the Strait of Hormuz and get back to something like the status quo ante? We don't really know. So, we're always going to be slightly playing a guessing game because it's not really clear what America wants to achieve in a war that increasingly looks like quite a major miscalculation.
Now, President Zelensky, as we've been saying, has been meeting President Trump today at the White House. The Ukrainian president posted on X saying he had a good meeting with President Trump. He thanked the United States for its firm support in protecting the lives of Ukrainians. Now, Sviatoslav Yurash is a Ukrainian MP on the parliamentary delegation to the US and is also a sergeant in the 24th Separate Assault Battalion. Sviatoslav, welcome to you. Thank you for joining me.
Thank you very much for having me on.
It's good to have you here. How do you see President Zelensky's mission to Donald Trump? What do you imagine he can achieve today?
It is quite a substantial step in our relationship with the president. We went a long way from the conversation in the White House, which made headlines for the wrong reasons, to this point now where we are seeing the articles of various investigators looking at Trump administration, seeing how they reassess the relation with Ukraine and how they can see that Ukraine has provided the world with quite a understanding of what the modern war is all about and how to win it.
And how do you, Sviatoslav, how do you analyse the warming in President Trump's attitudes towards President Zelensky and Ukraine? Is it simply a matter of Zelensky now in a pretty strong position when it comes to resisting the Russian invasion? And President Trump, well, he likes people to show strength and to succeed in showing strength. Is it that simple, do you think?
Zelensky was very clear in showcasing the Ukrainian people's desire to live in an independent country, a country which determines its own future and is willing to fight for that chance to build that future, and showing that we have every strength that the West needs when it's confronting all the challenges of the 21st century. Not to mention that we have many innovations that the West needs to confront the problems that are occurring all around us, around the world.
By that, then, do you mean it is possible for Ukraine to be of help to America, perhaps in cooperation on the production of war drones?
On every step, we have offered those possibilities to America and to every other partner of Ukraine and countries that are facing all kinds of mayhem and hell from, for example, the Iranian attacks on all the countries around Iran. We have offered and have provided the expertise on how to try and defeat the threat that Iran is posing to them. But beside that, we have, for example, seen, as in days past, you have Romania spending millions on repelling and beating back of the drones that Russia was sending to Romanian territory, which cost nothing. And we are very keen to share that knowledge establish their understanding and the means to fight against all that hell that Russia is imposing on the world.
Right, so you can be of help to America's military machine, and that's a language that President Trump can well understand. What about the help that you can get or could get from the United States? Because the president, he said to the face of President Zelensky a couple of weeks ago that he'd be willing to, or he wished to see, Ukraine be granted licenses to produce the Patriot missile, which is about the best air defense missile it's possible to have. Now, that was said. Has anything happened since then? Because saying such a thing is one thing, and making it happen is another.
Indeed. Beside being the best, it's the most expensive. And that's the fundamental problem with missiles in that context. Already there is much interest from our neighbors, and too much have been spoken in the Western media about the spat between us and the Polish on matters of historical memory. And too little things have been posted about the fact that we actually are coming to an understanding about developing those missiles together. We can develop based on those licenses. So in that reality, we are cooperating with the world in terms of providing and building up that potential. As far as America is concerned, despite everything that we can see and read in the American and global press, all the problems America is facing, America is still a superpower. Has the largest army in the world, has the largest military budget in the world, largest navy in the world. And when you speak of the awesome power America still has, it is fundamental to have it on your side when trying to confront the countries that hate America first. And Russia is certainly that country. And to reiterate to them and provide to them different means to counteract Russian activities, not just in Ukraine, but all the world, is certainly our intention, our desire, and our showcase into Trump administration and every other actor beyond.
Okay, look, I mean, clearly America is a power you would wish to have on your side, likewise President Trump. But how much faith do you attach to the power of President Trump to bring about an end to the war? Because I mean, it can be argued persuasively, can't it, that even if President Trump was to apply maximum pressure on Russia to end the war in Ukraine, Putin would not listen to him. It's all very well for Putin to have Trump saying things of which he approves, but if Trump were to say, look, I no longer, well, he's never said I support Russia, but he's certainly been short of supporting Ukraine, and if Trump turned on Putin, it could be argued Putin would say, well, okay, I'll go away, I'll carry on without your support, President Trump, because so dedicated is Putin to the war.
Indeed. And the sad story is we can speak about all the wrong words that have been said, but we are forgetting about the fact that Trump provided Ukraine, even in his first term, with various means that we have put to good use when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2022. Beside that, there are all kinds of different levers that are possible to pull as far as increasing pressure on Russia, and that's in the sanctions bill that famously will have a resolution soon enough, and that was spearheaded by Lindsey Graham and various other actors in different chambers of Congress, and it's all about increasing the pressure on Russia and other malign actors around the world who intend to destroy American-led order.
Okay. Sviatoslav Yurash, Ukrainian MP, Sergeant in the Ukrainian military, thank you for joining me today.